You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HollowNet has been approved. Please stand by.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. We've got a lot to get into, but first, I wanted to make sure to wish all of you an enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. The reason I say enjoyable and not happy is because this is the time where we pause to reflect and remember all of those servicemen and women who gave the last full measure of devotion in defense of our nation. So we start there, here on the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Yes, indeed, that is right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. The new millennial conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you. You're listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network on this, the Sunday, May the 27th in the year of our Lord 2018, the day before Memorial Day. Now, I was taking a look online at all the myriad of news stories that are jumping through my feed today, and what should greet me but an interesting story from theblaze.com. We're going to go to the Blaze real fast, see if I can pick the right one. Oh, God, I got about 10 of them. All right, anyway, while we're waiting for that to load up, the Navy SEAL responsible for the death of Osama bin Laden, the ex-Navy SEAL credited with killing Osama bin Laden, I would say former Navy SEAL, ex-Navy SEAL has kind of a negative connotation, but he has made a special request for Memorial Day. And that's former Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill. And his request is that he doesn't want anyone to tell him Happy Memorial Day. He would rather not hear Happy Memorial Day. And, you know, I can completely understand that. The man is an honored veteran of our armed forces, has a storied history with the military, and has the notoriety, and has chosen to use that notoriety to give us a correction to our lexicon, to our cultural understanding of what Memorial Day means. Now, I was blessed to be partly raised by my grandparents. I think I've mentioned it many times on the show. My late grandfather was a Navy veteran and was also a Port Authority police officer for many years. And he instilled a great deal of respect in our family for the armed forces and also for our first responders. And he made it very clear when I was a kid that on Veterans Day, you thank a veteran, you honor our veterans, and you think about them and you support them. On Memorial Day, before all this flash and before all of this pomp and you know, we're going to throw a Memorial Day barbecue and this, that, and the other thing. And if you want to roast burgers and hot dogs on Memorial Day, God bless you. Our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen and women died for the right for you to do that. And honoring them by exercising our freedoms and liberties is a beautiful thing. But we should never forget that Memorial Day was originally, I think it was referred to as dressing day. I think it might have been, or decorating day, rather, because it was the day that you go and you decorate the graves. Now, my hometown, I grew up in a little town, 4.5 square miles, population like 27,000 in Jersey. Shout out Exit 12, people back in Carteret. And in the middle of town, we had the great big park. It's Carteret Park. And there was a huge memorial. Still stands today, the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial. And on Memorial Day, they'd put out the crosses and the Stars of David, and the markers for every single name on that obelisk in the middle of town. And they would put those out with little American flags, because that's what you do on Memorial Day. You remember those who have died, and it was always a somber and reflective and respectful day. And there was always a beautiful ceremony that was conducted there by the Catholic War Veterans, CWV, the American Legion, the Boy Scouts were a big part of that back when they were still Boy Scouts. And it left such an impression on me that this story caught my eye and caught my heart, that we really do have to remember why we celebrate Memorial Day. And we celebrate Memorial Day to mark and remember those who gave that last full measure of devotion, those who died for our nation, and to give them that due and that honor and respect in their deep repose. So, as you hoist your can of your choice, as you flip the burgers, as you enjoy your Monday off, make sure you take the time to remember those who died for us to have this freedom to celebrate and to be with our friends and our family. Make sure you honor our honorable dead. And I'm going to steal a line from Lord of the Rings, like I do, because I'm a nerd like that. In the movie The Two Towers, after the Battle of Helm's Deep, I think it was, they're in the halls of Rohan, and they're celebrating their victory, and then there's a somber moment where King Theoden, I think it was, lifts up his chalice, his ale, and he says, "Hail the victorious dead." And everyone raises their glasses and says, "Hail." So I'm going to say that now on Memorial Day. Got my cup of coffee here, my HollowNet mug. Hail the victorious dead. Honor them and remember them for their sacrifice today. Now, we have other things we need to get back to. I got to take a drink, actually. Things we have to get to. A lot has happened over the course of the last couple days, and I always come into the show, and I know my friends Dylan and Steven covered this a little bit on Defenders of American Exceptionalism. If you haven't caught their show yet, they're way, way, way funnier than me. I have to kind of start every show with my own mantra. I am not as funny as Dylan and Steven. I am not as funny as Dylan and Steven. Stop trying to be funny. But they touched on this earlier. It seems that the GOP, or at least 11 members thereof, may have effectively grown a pair. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. According to the Washington Post, House conservatives demand an investigation of Hillary Clinton. That's right. Robert S. Mueller's investigation has 1 indictment against President Trump's former campaign chairman and 16 others, and has secured guilty pleas from 5 people, including former National Security Advisor and 2 campaign advisors. This can mean only one thing. It's time to reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails. So the WAPO clearly taking a side. And we go to Vox. 11 House Republicans call for prosecutions of Clinton, Comey, Lynch, and others. See her looking in the picture there. She's laughing. She's laughing and smiling. 11 House Republicans. Now, these are names that we should all remember and that we should take note of coming into the new election. Ron DeSantis, Andy Biggs, our own Andy Biggs of Arizona, Dave Bratt, Jeff Duncan, Matt Getz, Paul Gosar, that's 2 from Arizona, Andy Harris, Jody Heiss, Todd Rokita, Claudia Tenney, and Ted Yoho signed a joint letter to the Attorney General Jeff Sessions calling for the criminal prosecution of Hillary Clinton and a variety of other Obama administration appointees, career FBI officials, and even Trump appointee Dana Boente, who is currently the FBI's general counsel. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of something that I actually did back when I was writing and also doing some field reporting via Facebook Live for The Blaze. That's right. I've seen this before. I went down there, and at the FBI building in Phoenix, there was a protest. That's right, there was a protest. Now, I just have to seem to remember, what was that protest about? My God, it was calling for the criminal prosecution of Hillary Clinton. You don't say. No, surely no. Surely not at all. But yes, it was. In fact, it was on that day that I actually met up with now a man I consider a friend, Steve Robinson, who is has been in the right-wing activist circles here in Arizona for quite some time. He's a good man. I had the pleasure of speaking to him on a number of occasions, and I actually had the pleasure to talk to him here during my interview covering this event. There's Steve right there. Here, I'm going to go to that cut real fast, see if I can pull that up, work a little multimedia magic. See, this is where having a producer comes in handy. Good day, everyone. My name is Matthew Holloway, and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, where a group of protesters have gathered in front of the FBI field office to protest Director Comey's refusal to indict Hillary Clinton. We're going to go ahead and switch the camera around so we can take a look at the protest that's taking place here. As you can see, people have begun to gather here out in front of the FBI field office in Phoenix, Arizona, and their voice is very clear. They're protesting the fact that Hillary Clinton was not rightfully indicted for for perjury against Congress, and they're seeking to highlight the corruption that they see has taken over this presidential election. Now there's the FBI building right out in front of us. We're right across the street right now. It's about 110 degrees outside. And we see here we have a sign here citing Executive Order 13526, USC Section 793. I want to see if you guys could enlighten us a little bit as to the particular order that you're citing there with regard to Secretary Clinton. We're live on the Blaze right now. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. This is a little bit of a lame part of the interview. Hang on. No worries. So we're going to go ahead and take a look back and... Michael. Actually live on the Blaze right now, sir.
Live on the Blaze right now. Awesome. Yes, glad to have you guys out here. So,
Yellow alert.
What we're doing here today is we're just voicing our...
Trip down memory lane right here.
That this is just not right. We're getting fed up with the fact that there are people in our elected officials in government that are acting outside of the law as though they are above the law, and they're getting away with it.
Tell everybody your name. I'm sorry.
My name is Steve Robinson.
My name is Michael Bailey.
Michael?
Michael here set this up, and we just decided that it was good and just, and we're running with it. It's just the first of many events that we're going to have. So this is going to be a nationwide patriot movement. We're going to start calling out our government on all of their transgressions. Someone needs to call them on it.
One of our goals here in Arizona is to unite all the small groups throughout Arizona into larger groups to be
united in this movement. Our government officials need to be held accountable for their actions. They can't just act lawlessly, do whatever they want, break the law that you and me would go to federal prison for, and they don't even get a slap on the wrist.
There you have it. I just couldn't even put it any better than Steve Robinson did back there. And this, guys, if you check the timestamp, this was July 24th, 2016. That was 2 years ago. God, I was so green. That interview was garbage, wasn't it? That was terrible. Do you see the camera work? I swear to God, I was looking at Steven's chest for like 3 minutes with the camera because I'm holding it down here and I'm talking to him up here because I didn't have this really crucial little tool, which I don't even have it in my studio now. I didn't have a lapel mic and I didn't have a hand mic to give him, so I got to like hold the phone to his face. So everybody on the Blaze's Facebook was looking at his chest. So that was 2 years ago. That was July 2016 when that protest took place. And now, only now, that we have majorities in both the House and the Senate, and a president in office who is a Republican, is this finally happening. 11 House Republicans are calling for the prosecutions of Clinton, Comey, Lynch, and others. The issue, to be clear, they said, is not particular zeal for campaign finance law. It's a broad request that the full force of the government be brought against Trump's political enemies, according to Vox. Oh, my goodness. Oh, you hear how one-sided this is. You hear how very, very one-sided this all is. Now, if we look to coverage from Breitbart, we get a completely different story about how this is a long time coming. Same thing from really any right-wing news feed. But as it sits right now, that's not what we're going to hear about. We're too busy hearing about, let's see, mayor who honored Stormy Daniels settled $500,000 sexual harassment claim. We as a nation have got such a nasty case of ADD that we can't seem to keep track of anything. I had that pulled up on Breitbart too, but I'm not finding it right now. But anywho, so you're going to hear this touted very strongly on all the right-wing sites, and you're going to hear about it absolutely getting derided and slammed by outlets like Vox and HuffPo and the Washington Post. And let's just get the full list here of who's going to be indicted from Vox. I think they're good for that. They're looking for FBI Director James Comey, Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, Peter Strzok, and DOJ lawyer Lisa Page, who, were texting back and forth about how they have to do everything they can to keep Trump from winning the presidency while they were investigating his adversary. There's nothing wrong with that? Okay. Separately, it calls for a prosecution of all DOJ and FBI personnel responsible for signing the Carter Page warrant application, which is Comey and McCabe plus former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates plus U.S. Attorney Dana Boente for allegedly violating Page's civil liberties. So Vox crying out against it, WAPO crying out against it, something is being done right. These prosecutions should have happened in 2016, when people like Mike Bailey and Steve Robinson were standing out there in the 110-degree heat, seemingly yelling at the rain. That's a figure of speech, by the way. It doesn't rain much here in Arizona. But that must have been what it felt like, yelling into the wind. No one was listening to them in 2016. Why? Because the Obama administration was still in power. And this is now the norm in this country. This is what happens. The sins of the left are ignored until the right is in power. The sins of the right are ignored until the left is in power. People didn't talk about, the crazy things that the Bush administration did until a left-wing administration took power. That is the fatal breakdown in our system right now, is the government that is in power is above the law. And we have this precedent in American history that you don't turn around and prosecute the people who came before you because it looks like, on the surface, you're attacking your enemies. But that raises the issue. What if they actually committed a crime? What if they committed several crimes? As I personally believe Hillary Clinton incontestably did. I believe the Carter Page investigation was a sham. I'm living here in Phoenix, where Loretta Lynch had her clandestine meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac of Sky Harbor Airport. That happened here. And that's what spurred the protest in 2016. These things happened at the same time, guys. But no, we have this precept, this notion in our country that a new administration can't turn around and prosecute the sins of the old because it looks like you're striking back at your enemies, and that's the next step toward fascism. Yeah, when you get in power and you start prosecuting. No, we all need to be like Gerald R. Ford, who turned around and gave President Richard Nixon, that was an obstruction. And even if you did anything wrong in your whole presidency, it's all good. Don't worry about it. That's what we're expected to do when the GOP is in power, is overlook all the sins of the left. And we hope that the left does all the same to us. But I would be thoroughly impressed if the shoe were on the other foot and it didn't happen. Because it seems, in my experience, in my 31 years of experience, that it's all well and good and the left has these high-handed morals until they don't. They don't police themselves to live by them. They expect everybody else to. And it's a sham. Now we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a nation that is really drifting dangerously close. They're sitting on the penumbra of a true progressive fascist state. No, I'm not talking about Venezuela. They've already gone over the black hole's horizon. No, I'm talking about the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, who, according to news just in, arrested and imprisoned British activist and journalist Tommy Robinson, who's been an outspoken critic of Islam and has covered stories detailing the child grooming rings that have been going on in the UK. Well, he was out in front of a court filming with his phone and was promptly placed under arrest and sentenced to 13 weeks behind bars. And there's a gag order in place, so it's all hush-hush. There's no news of this being reported in the UK because the stranglehold is that strong. But by God, we live here in the United States of America where freedom of the press is still a thing. We'll talk more about that when we come back. Take a quick break. If you want to follow us, we're on Facebook Live right now, facebook.com/HollowNet. Tweet at the HollowNet. Find us on thehollownet.lanterns.buzz and thehollownet.com.
I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. And the principles that founded our nation. That all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. We have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations and unite as Americans. Not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. I've covered a lot of stories. But the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century. When we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism. When we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. When we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there is one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HollowNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HollowNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
back. You're listening to the HollowNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And it is a little bit hot outside. I'm your host, Matt Holloway, coming to you now, bottom of the hour here. It's 4:30 in Phoenix, and we are about halfway into it here, folks. I wanted to direct your attention to another news story that has come out, and this one kind of got me a little bit tweaked. I told you about it right before the show. It appears that Tommy Robinson, who is a notable right-wing activist in the UK, you may have heard of him from Sargon of Akkad, a couple of other UK conservative and more classic liberal sources, will tell you that he is not very popular with the Muslim community. And there's a good reason for it. He has been outwardly reporting on the grooming gangs, they call them, that are running rampant through the English countryside, specifically in some of the smaller hamlets outside of Greater London. These are gangs that lure in young women and introduce them to drugs, introduce them to a form of prostitution, where they're essentially passed around by a group of men and horrifically abused, raped, tortured, and really pulled away from their families, used for everything they got. It's horrible abuse of women that is ongoing and is becoming epidemic in proportions in the UK. And it's a problem that the Labourites in the UK, the left wing in the UK, would love to ignore, and that the mayor of London will come right out and tell you is just the worst type of Islamophobia. This is the phenomenon that Britain First, which is a very reactionary far right-wing party, has been really harping on and paying a lot of attention to, and we're not going to get into how bad that went with the prominent leaders of that party being jailed. I'm going to come right out and say that I don't endorse Britain First. I think they are a little bit on the fringe. They're a little bit out there, and they are really a nativist party in the true sense of the word. They want Britain for Britons and nobody else. And I don't think that as a constitutional conservative who believes in legal immigration and believes in the exchange of ideas and assimilation into a culture, I don't think that's a good goal to have, is to expel everybody from your country. But they got into a lot of trouble with this as well. So we go to the UK. And Fox News reports UK right-wing activist and journalist Tommy Robinson was arrested and reportedly jailed Friday after he filmed members of an alleged child grooming gang entering a court for trial. The details of his purported sentence remain murky after the judge ordered the press not to report on the case. Robinson, the former head of the English Defence League and a longtime activist against Islam and Islamic migration, was arrested after he was filming men accused of being part of a gang that groomed children. Britain has been rocked by a series of child sex scandals perpetuated by gangs of predominantly Muslim men. There you have it right there, black and white. This is actually a thing that is happening, folks. Video shows Robinson, real name Stephen Lennon, being surrounded by as many as 7 police officers as he live-streamed the incident on his phone. The police informed him he was being arrested for breach of the peace. So, for the record, guys standing there outside of the courthouse filming the guys going into court as part of a story. No different from how I was standing out in front of the FBI building 2 years ago with the Patriot Movement protesters, okay? Now, he's arrested by 7 cops for breach of the peace for live streaming from his phone. Okay? Count Dankula Redux. I mean, Count Dankula put up a funny video on YouTube, wound up getting arrested and getting the book thrown at him. This guy was live streaming in front of a court. He was covering a public space for a legitimate journalistic purpose. And he's arrested for breach of the peace. Folks, the black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the rain? Man, all respects to Soundgarden, I don't think this is what they had in mind, but the black hole of fascism, the penumbra, the event horizon, is right where the UK sits squarely today. You know, we can call this story 1983 because they're not quite at 1984 yet. God, are they close. Shortly after the arrest, a source with knowledge of the case told Fox News he had been jailed for 13 months. Sorry, I said weeks before. Months on a contempt of court charge. The court listed the case as closed by Friday afternoon. One source says he's jailed in Hull prison. Now, there was also a comment from his lawyer that's very disturbing. Quote, Tommy's lawyer said he will likely die in jail, given his profile and previous credible threats, and the judge basically said he doesn't care. He sentenced him to 13 months in prison. Sources with knowledge of the case spoke on condition of anonymity, in part because they fear they'll be arrested for contempt. One told Fox that Robinson's lawyer warned that, considering the presence of these Muslim gang members in prison, a 13-month sentence was tantamount to a death sentence. Stay tuned, folks, and say a prayer for Tommy Robinson. The man is a political activist, whether you agree with him or not, whether you endorse his views or not, and I frankly don't know his views well enough to endorse them or strike them down. I have to do more research than that. I know he's very much of the same vein as Laura Southern, and I believe he had another colleague who was actually banned from entering the UK, along with Lauren Southern. But the UK has reached a breaking point where we can really no longer consider the United Kingdom to be an enlightened and civilized Western nation if they continue to pounce on their own population with gag orders of this type. Can you think of that? Let's say I was standing out in front of Phoenix City Hall, okay? And maybe I was covering the Jodi Arias story, right? And if the judge placed a gag order on the Jodi Arias story, and I'm there live streaming, maybe like I did for The Blaze, maybe I'm live streaming for Lanterns, which is a legitimate news outlet, a legitimate website and source. We have a full network of professionals. And I'm live streaming. And I was suddenly surrounded by 7 officers of Phoenix PD. Mind you, this is a what-if scenario. I'm comparing to Tommy Robinson here. I'm not saying any of this actually happened. But imagine if that happened. I would be in an uproar. And rightly so. Because in the United States of America, I have the freedom of speech. I have the freedom of expression and the freedom of the press. Not so in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. In the 1800s, during the colonial era of the UK, specifically during the reign of Queen Victoria, when Britain was at its zenith, it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. Well, I tell you now, on Friday, May the 25th, in the year of our Lord 2018, Anno Domini, the sun has finally set on the British Empire. Further frustrating news from across the pond. And for the best analysis of this, I would strongly recommend that you check out Jonathan Dunn, Freedom's Disciple. He has a podcast on theblaze.com that's available on iHeartRadio. Again, Freedom's Disciple, Jonathan Dunn, our good friend here at Lanterns from Ireland. He actually lives there in Ireland, lives and works. Ireland shocked the conservative world when, with, I believe, over a 67% turnout, 67% in favor, they revoked and repealed the 8th Amendment to the Irish Constitution. The Irish Constitution was probably one of the harshest sets of laws pertaining to abortion. The only exception for abortion that was allowed under Irish law was under threat of harm or threat of life to the mother. That was the only reasoning you could have in order to get an abortion in Ireland. This has been soundly reversed. And it seems that by and large, the mainstream media could not possibly be more pleased with themselves. Now, I've got some ire over this, but I posted on Facebook, early indications of horrible news from Ireland. Yet another nation willfully approves its own genocide. God help us all if we cannot reverse this trend. Then Western civilization will survive only in the hushed whispers of those who dare to contradict the history written by the victors. Ireland is no longer a part of the UK, for those not up on 100-year-old political facts, but many of the laws remain very similar. The freedom of speech is not nearly as protected as it is here in the United States. So one must wonder, are things about to get very, very difficult for pro-lifers in Ireland? Because many of the common laws are shared. Exit poll by Irish broadcaster RTE predicted a yes vote of 69.4% in Ireland's abortion referendum, and there were parties and celebrations across the Emerald Isle. The Taoiseach, which is their equivalent to a president, who's a former doctor, led the Yes campaign for the repeal, welcomed the exit poll with the expectation that it would be confirmed when the ballots are counted. He said, "Thank you to everyone who voted today. Democracy in action. It's looking like we will make history tomorrow." A massive 87% of voters aged 18 to 24 said they voted yes, with changing demographics expected to have a significant pull on the result. A serious blow for the pro-life movement around the world. That a bastion of protection of life pre-birth has fallen. Now, I had a healthy debate on this with a member of my family who is pro-choice. And we went around in circles like you always do. But the one thing that I came away with is that while my philosophy in life is that of pro-life, I believe that philosophically, religiously, with my whole heart, I am pro-life. I do not see abortion as an acceptable form of birth control. But we bandied around the topic a little bit, and something that we agreed upon is one of the paths to bringing about real change in abortion law in the United States is that birth control, the birth control pill, as it were, really shouldn't be a prescription anymore, should it? Why is it so incredibly expensive without insurance to get birth control? Now, a lot of people can have the argument that, refraining from sex is 100% effective birth prevention. I agree. It's 100% effective birth control. But I think as a middle ground approach and a plank of the conversation about reforming abortion law here in the United States and bringing it closer to a pro-life stance, to a 20-week ban, for example. A nationwide 20-week ban, I think, is a good start. But I think the exchange on that would be birth control, $10. Becomes over-the-counter, $10. Because right now you can get the morning after pill for about $39. But I would say that making birth control more readily available, making it no longer require a prescription from a doctor, easily accessible to women, is a good step in the right direction. Now, I am a constitutional conservative, which puts me in an interesting place in the abortion dialogue and in that entire ethos. And, there are going to be people who don't like my point of view. There are going to be people who do like my point of view. It's my point of view. I maintain that because it's my point of view, I don't have a right to force it upon anybody, and that our government is not in the position of legislating morality. Again, I am pro-life, but our government is not designed to legislate morality. Now, another conversation that I had along these lines is that my honest belief, and it can't come fast enough, is that science is going to answer the abortion question for us probably in the next 10 to 20 years. And we're going to look back and really regret the amount of lives that have been lost through abortion on demand. That's my personal belief. I believe that we're going to reach a point where an infant can be fully gestated in an artificial womb in the event that an unintentional pregnancy occurs. And then that child can be placed with a family and things of that nature. Or that birth control becomes such a easily acquired tool that it becomes a null point. But as a small government constitutional conservative, I cannot support the notion that the government has the right to legislate on morality. Historically, under the 10th Amendment, that falls to the states. For each state to determine at what point does it go from being a fetus to a child. I believe that point is at the point of conception. People disagree on this point. But that is what a healthy republic allows for. A healthy republic, not a democracy like Ireland has. A healthy republic allows us to express these differing views and to meet and come to a form of compromise, a form of solution so that we can move forward. I would love to see a 100% ban on all abortions throughout the world because they're no longer remotely even necessary. Where's that push? Or is it just medical apathy that, birth control's gotten about as good as it's ever going to get. So, you either take this pill, and if you forget it, then you have a baby. Let's work hard to bridge the gap between morality and government with science. Where's that work? Where's that push forward? We got a little pill that can make you harder than Chinese algebra for about 8 hours. But where is the 100% reliable birth control methodology that completely renders the abortion debate moot? Let's apply ourselves. The states are the place to experiment with law. And Roe v. Wade was a massive overreach of federal power. It's a case of them doing what they viewed as the right thing the wrong way. It's the same way I view the gay marriage debate, the Hodges v. Overfeld decision. That may have well been the right thing to do, but you did it the wrong way. You brought down the 10-ton hammer of the federal government and intruded where the states belong. Because the closer the government is directly to the people, the more the people can set what they believe to be moral in place in their own government. And the morality of Phoenicians, people who live in Phoenix and in Arizona, may be different from the morality of people who live in California, or the people who live in Nevada, or the people who live in New York. And once upon a time, that was okay. You voted with your feet. But then you have people taking the 14th Amendment and throwing it around all over every possible thing, saying that you have to have equal treatment under the law. Equal treatment under the law does not mean that the laws need to necessarily be the same one state to another state to another state. Otherwise, living in Arizona, I moved here when I was 19. I could buy a lottery ticket in New Jersey when I was 19. Couldn't buy one in Arizona till I was 21. Drinking laws differ. Smoking laws differ. Abortion laws differ within a certain restraint because they have to be within the confines of Roe v. Wade. But we are a republic so that the majority of people cannot force their morality or lack thereof onto the other half. which is what just happened in Ireland. 70% of the Irish people, 70% of 87%, just told the rest of Ireland, your views are not moral, and here's the force of government that will make you comply. That is why we are not a democracy. That is why we are a republic, and why we must remain a republic. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. And protected from the people. Protected from a majority run amok. So whether or not you agree with my stance on abortion, I respect your right to have your own opinion, because we live in this nation. Unlike poor Tommy Robinson, who is of the opinion that the biggest trouble in the UK right now is Muslim migration and grooming gangs, which I agree are clearly a serious issue. But the government disagreed with him, so the government threw him in prison for 13 months. That's a year in prison because you pissed off a judge. Dear God. Pray for Tommy Robinson. Pray for the United Kingdom. Pray for the Irish people. Talking about prayer a lot on a show that typically focuses on politics and international news, but there you have it. Damn. Well, I almost ranted for a full half hour on that. How about that? Had to be said, damn it. So, going into this week, tomorrow, I've got the day off. Yeah. Remember why we have the day off. Remember that tomorrow is a day to honor those who gave that last full measure. To honor those who sacrificed their lives knowingly and willingly on the altar of freedom. So that guys like me can spout my views to the world. So you can listen to it. And you don't have to do it hushed and hiding in a closet somewhere. Their sacrifice enables our free republic to exist and to perpetuate to this day. And we must honor it every day in everything we do. We must honor the blood that was shed. As I said before the break, hail the victorious dead. If you know how to read this, the old bumper sticker reads, thank a teacher. If you're reading it in English, thank a veteran. Because you're reading it in English, honor our fallen soldiers who died so you could. All right, guys. I'm going to call this one good. This is episode number 61 of the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Coming into this week, looks like Will Power won the Indy 500. Man, are they going to milk that for all it's worth? The Indy 500 was won by Will Power. Yeah, but who won? Will Power. Yeah, I get it. The guy had a strong will to win, apparently. No, his name's Will Power. Is he playing Who's on First? Just giving you a highlight of what every sport channel is going to do for the next week. Yeah. Get used to that joke. But that's everything we've got to go on today. You've been listening to the HollowNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. You can follow us on Twitter at the HollowNet, Facebook, facebook.com/HollowNet, thehollownet.com, and hollownet.lanterns.buzz. Good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HollowNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HollowNet on patreon.com, and you can access that at patreon.com/thehollownet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HollowNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HollowNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz. For great radio, get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.